Hello. Welcome to part two of the CSS exercise to build up a cafe menu. In the last video, we probably covered like 50 to 60% of building up the cafe menu. And now the goal is to build the complete cafe menu. We stopped at step number 57. So let's begin from there. So just to recap, we have this cafe menu. It's Camper Cafe. It's split into two sections. One is coffee and one is desserts. And we have a list of items. Their prices are also mentioned here. And we need to get to a final stage where it has a footer, where there's an address, there's an image just below the coffee and desserts, and the items are listed closer to one another, not as far as it is right now. Okay, so some final modifications to be done, and we should be able to build up a cafe menu end to end in this particular video. Okay, so step number 57, you can change the font family of the text to make it look different from the default font of your browser. Yeah, so basically the font here. Each browser has some common fonts. Change all of the text in the body by adding a font family property. Okay, so let's add a font family property and call it sans serif. Okay, cool. So now the font has changed. Looks better than the previous one. It is a bit boring for all of the text to have the same font family. So you can still have the majority of the text in sans serif and make H1, H2 elements different from the overall body using a different selector. So style both H1 and H2 elements. So let's do H1, H2, and the font family is impact. Okay, so now H1, H2 have changed. The font has changed. And for the remaining body, it's still sans serif. You can add a fallback value for the font family by adding another font name separated by a comma. So something like this. So if the initial font is not available or not found, then there is like a fallback to serif font. Make the established 2020 text italicized using the font style italic. Okay, so by creating an established class selector, and giving it the font style italic. One thing is that because there's no established class selector given on the HTML side, or so it probably, okay, does not work. So I need to go to the HTML to do this. Yeah, now it works. It's italic, established 2020. The typography of the heading elements is set by default values of the user's browsers. Okay, what is typography? Let's see. Add two new type selectors, H1 and H2. Use the font size property for both, but use the value 40 pixels for H1 and 30 pixels for H2. Okay. Font size 40 pixels for H1. Okay, so the size is, I'm increasing the size. Yeah. And for H2, Don't want is as big, so 30 pixels. Okay, works. Add a footer element below the main element. So footer, open and close, where you can add additional information. Yeah, so let's add additional information in the footer. Let's add a paragraph element and then nest an anchor element in the paragraph that links to this and has the text visit our website for it. So visit our website, paragraph close, and here it could be ahref is equal to this. Anchor close. Yeah, looks good. Add a second paragraph element below. Oh, let's just clean up. Add a second paragraph element below the one with the link and give it the text. This, let's address. So now we have this address below the link. You can use an HR element to display a divider between sections of different content. Okay. So first add an HR element between the paragraph element with the class established in the and the first section element. Okay, so HR, and they are self-closing. The default properties of an HR element will make it appear as a thin light gray line. You can change the height of the line by specifying a value for the height property. Change the height of the HR element. So let's start with styling it. So height of the HR element should be 3 pixels. Okay, it's bigger. Then background color should be brown. Perfect. Edges have the same color. So border color is equal to brown. Okay, now notice how the thickness of the line looks bigger. The default value of a property named border width is 1 pixel. By changing the border of the border to the same color as the background, the total height of the line is now 5 pixels. So it's 3 for the height, 1 for border, top and bottom. So it's total 5. So change the property of the HR to HR height to 2 pixels so that the total height becomes 4 pixels. Yep, fair enough. Go ahead and add another HR element between the main section and the footer element. So main section and the footer element. So somewhere here. And because we are just adding things here, automatically all of the properties should be followed with the CSS styling. To create a little more room around the menu, add 20 pixels of space on the inside of the body element by using padding property. Okay, so I'm creating further padding within body. focusing on the menu items and prices, there is a fairly large gap between each line. Yes. Use the existing selector that targets all of the P elements nested in elements with the class named item, and set their top and bottom margin. So item P, set the top and bottom margin to be 5 pixels. So something like maybe margin top. Yeah, this works. And the lines are now closer. Use the same style selector in the previous step. Make the font size of the items and the prices larger by using a value of 18 pixels. So font size 18 pixels. Yep, works well. Change the margin bottom to 5 pixel. Changing the margin bottom to 5 pixel looks great. However, there's no space between cinnamon roll menu item and the horizontal HR element. What is a full form of the HR element? Okay, horizontal rule thematic break. And the second HR element does not match the space between the top. Okay, yeah. So basically the spacing between the line and coffee is not matching the spacing between cinnamon roll line and visit the website. So add some more space by creating a class named bottom line. And margin top is 25 pixels. Okay, does it work? Let's see. Doesn't look like it works. Okay, because we didn't have not yet set a class. Now add a bottom line class here to the, and now it works. Yep, it's moving. Yep. Now, next you're going to style the footer element. To keep the CSS organized, add a comment at the end of the style CSS with the text footer. Comment. Moving down to the footer element, make all of the text have a value 14 pixel for the font size. So footer font size 14 pixels. It's now smaller. Default color of a link that has not yet been clicked is typically blue. The default color of a link that has been clicked is purple. Make sure the footer links the same color regardless if it's visited or not. Let's use a type selector for the anchor element A. And then color, should it be black? Font color. Yeah, it's now black. Cool. Or should it be font color? Okay, it's not font color, it's color. You can change properties of a link when the link has actually been visited by using a pseudo selector that looks like a, yes, visited, property name, property value. So change the color of the footer, visit our website link to gray when a user has just visited the link. Okay, got it. So a visited property name. Property name would be color and the value would be gray. Okay. For hover, it let's make it brown. A hover color is equal to, yeah, it does. The color does change when I hover over it. And then finally, when the link is active, like while it's been clicked, it should become white. So a active color white. Yeah, it does become white. To keep with the same color theme, you have already been using black and brown. So change the color for when the link is visited to black and use brown for when the link is actually clicked. Visited to black. So visited should become black. Clicked should be brown. The menu text Camper Cafe has a different space from the top than the address space at the bottom. Yes. This is due to the browser having some default top margin for the H1 element. Change the top margin of the H1 element to 0 and remove all of the top margin. So margin top 0 pixels. And now it's has moved up. To remove some of the vertical space between the H1 element and the established 2020 element, change the bottom margin of H1 to margin bottom. Let's make it 15 pixels. Okay. Now the top spacing looks good. The space below the address at the bottom of the menu is a little bit bigger than the space at the top of the menu and the H1 element. To decrease the default margin space below the address P element, create a class selector named address. So address, use the value 5 pixels for margin bottom property. Okay. And here class is equal to okay. So it's changing as I add the S. The menu looks good, but other than the coffee beans background image, it's mainly just text. Under the coffee heading, add an image using the URL this, give it an alt attribute. So img src is equal to this. Alt attribute is equal to coffee icon. Close it. Oh, it's probably coffee icon. Under the coffee heading, add an image using the URL image src. Give the image an alt value of coffee icon. I think, oh, coffee icon has a space. The image you added is not centered horizontally, yes. So image elements are like inline elements. To make the image behave like heading elements, which are block level, create an image type selector, image selector, and use the value block for the display property. Display property block, and use the applicable margin left, margin right values to center it horizontally. Margin left is what center. Let's see. Margin right, center. Okay. What should be the margin left and margin right? Should it be 50%? Okay. Let's check step number 90. Probably be able to understand what's happening. Okay, so margin left and right is auto. Understood. It's not 50%, it's auto. And I remember that we looked at this. Okay. Add one last image under the deserts section and whoops. It would be nice if the vertical space between the H2, yeah, it's big. So the H2 elements have default margin space. So you could change the bottom margin of the H2 elements to say 0 or another number. There's an easier way. Simply add a negative top margin to the image. So margin top is, let's say, minus 25 pixels. Ah, the coffee image moved up, and also the desert pie. Perfect. So now we are done with the menu. And it looks something like this. We have heading 1. This is probably like a paragraph. Heading 2, coffee. Then we have this articles with paragraph and price. And this whole thing is a one section. Desserts is again one section. Donut price is one article, and we have multiple articles. Footer section. Oh, sorry, footer. And this whole thing is main. And here we have footer, and we have links and some different properties for hovering, clicking, and things like that, and address. making margins appropriate, horizontal alignment, and so on. Okay. That is cool. Now we have completed the first two pieces. Now in the next video, we can cover learn CSS colors by building a set of colored markers. Let's probably see what is, what do we want to build? Okay, so this is what we want to build. It sort of looks like an RGB scale. And we can look at this in the next video, which would be our third step. It would be our third step in the responsive web design course from FreeCodeCamp. Great, wonderful. Thank you so much. Hopefully, this was useful for you. I believe it was very useful for me. Pretty interesting stuff. If you like the content, do subscribe. And if you would like to reach out, just drop in a comment, even reach out to me on LinkedIn. Happy to brainstorm any content ideas, or if you want to get on this learning journey together. Great. Thank you so much, and have a good one, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.